What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today we're going to try to make sense of the New York Jets draft strategy based purely on the visits that they have currently had with players across all mediums, whether that's at the combine, private workouts, top 30 visits, meetings at bowls, and things like that, and try to come to an understanding of where and when the New York Jets might be making picks for specific positions. For this to happen, I'm going to switch views and go to a spreadsheet that I've made that has every single player that the New York Jets have met with that I can confirm that they have met with. So brace yourself. It's going to be really bright and white. If you want to follow along and you want to see this for yourself, the link to this spreadsheet is going to be in the description below. So you're definitely going to be able to click through, see those, and if you see a name that's not on here, like if you know for a fact that, we met with X player from X school at X event, please leave it in the comment section below. I want to keep this as up to date as possible leading up to the draft, just so that post-draft we can look at this and see, here are the 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that we've drafted. Did we meet with them, and did we take them in positions that we expected, like these positions, to be taken? So here are all of the names. They are ranked based purely on the position that they play, and that's it. They're not day one guys versus day two guys or anything like that. I might add that, like what round they might or are projected to go in. That being said, when we look at this list, I think the thing that stands out the most to me is that we're casting a wide net of guys. We're casting when we look at these positions, we're really attacking every level of this football team. We're not like narrowing in on any one specific position or player or room. We've really hit every position at every position that we might need. And I think the biggest thing that I take away from this is that the New York Jets aren't scared of introducing competition to a room. I think the best example of this is last year when we all said, oh, the New York Jets aren't going to take a corner. They're not going to take a corner at 4. They're not. And they took a corner at 4. They're not scared to say, you know what, we have a good enough room, but we're going to turn this room into a great room. And you can see that if you look at the top of the draft, the top of this board, and you see that we've met with 3 cornerbacks. Now, only one of those cornerbacks are relatively close to being a high pick, and Julius Brents, who's probably going to be a day 2 guy going in the 2nd or the 3rd round. But Starling Thomas and Carrington Valentine are both going to be day 3 picks, and this is great because guys like Brandon Echols, who I'm a big fan of, Bryce Hall, who I had shouted from the rooftops to trade away last year, and even our Pro Bowler Justin Hardy, all of their jobs should be up for grabs. And to be honest, even Michael Carter II, who played excellent, every single job should be up for grabs in every single room. And these types of guys are guys that have some upside that can maybe turn into, your Brandon Echols and those kinds of things. And having a pipeline of guys and guys that can come in to replace the guys that are going to go out, one, is only going to help out your comp formula. But 2 is exactly how good teams operate. You always have the next man up in the trenches. And this is the kind of mentality. The other thing that I really, really like is that if we look at specifically, like, let's just stick on the defensive side of the ball. If we look at the amount of players that we've brought in for linebacker and the defensive tackle room and where they're projected to get picked, outside of Mazi Smith and Tuli Tuipulotu, who are both defensive interior linemen. Tuli Tuipulotu can play on the edge or on the interior. Think JFM. They are both day 2 guys that you can get in the 2nd round pick. Now, if we keep both 43 and 42 because Green Bay wants to mess around and doesn't want to trade Aaron Rodgers before the draft, totally understandable. Those guys probably fall into that range where we can probably take them at 42 or 43. But Jervon Dexter and Broderick Martin and Trumaine Jones are all day 3 picks. They're all guys that you're going to be able to get in the 4th, the 5th, the 6th round, the 7th round. This is where we're looking, and we're casting a really wide net because, like, Jervon Dexter can go as early as the 3rd round pick and as late as the 5th round pick. And the same thing can be said about Broderick Martin, who can go as high as, late day 2, early day 3. And Truman Jones, the same kinds of things. It gives me an opportunity to kind of see that, like, you know what, the real focus has been on late defensive tackles. And that makes a ton of sense because I think the Jets are probably going to look for a starter to play next to Quinnen Williams in free agency versus going for a guy in the draft. These guys are going to be guys that we expect to be high-level contributors later. And the same can be said about the linebacker room. We've met with 4 linebackers: Ventrell Miller, Dion Henley, DeMarvion Overshown, and Mohamed Diabite. And the great thing is that I've watched tape on 3 of these 4 guys, and I'm big fans of 3 of these 4 guys. I have not watched Ventrell Miller, but now I will, now that I've made this list. But Dion Henley, DeMarvion Overshown, and Mohamed Diabite are all guys that I really, really like. And the best part is they all go in different parts of the draft. If you want Dion Henley, you need to take him in the 2nd round. DeMarvion Overshown could probably be had in the 3rd or the 4th round. Mohamed Diabite can probably be had in day 3. Really, like I said, casting a wide net and meeting with these players to see when and where they can be taken and how they can contribute to this team. And I think the biggest picture that I paint from the linebacker room meetings is the fact that the New York Jets aren't necessarily looking, outside of Dion Henley, looking for a starter. They're not necessarily looking for a guy that can come in and start immediately. I think what they're looking for is a Quincy Williams replacement. And what do I mean by that? A developmental guy that in 2 years' time, when we can get out from under Quincy Williams' contract, he can step up. The same thing that we're doing with our linebacker room right now with CJ Mosley. It's one of those things where CJ Mosley is probably going to be our linebacker in that room for the next 1 to 2 years, but we have his replacement in the wings, learning and developing and contributing to this team at a high level. And that's great. And then last but not least, moving on to the safety room, which is down here, we're meeting with a ton of different safeties. We're looking at guys that are probably going to go in the 1st round. And Brian Branch makes a ton of sense, but 2nd round pick probably in Jamie Robinson, a guy that I'm super interested in. I really like his flexibility and what he can do at the next level. Then you look at day 3 guys like, Justin Broyles and Jair Brown, guys that probably aren't going to be taken super high, probably are going to be day 3 to undrafted free agent kind of picks. And that's exactly what these guys are. Guys that are going to be late bloomers, guys that we can bring in and find in the competition. And I think the real important thing is remember where we found Tony Adams. Tony Adams was an undrafted free agent, and we decided to keep him over players that we drafted. And so, 1, it's just about bringing in competition, but 2, outside of Brian Branch and Jamie Robinson, it doesn't seem like the New York Jets are very interested in using a high pick on a safety. I think we're going to probably run the safety room that we have now. I would not be surprised if a guy like a Justin Broyles or a Jair Brown were brought in for straight up just competition. And that. Now let's move to the offensive side of the ball, and we're going to work from top to bottom in the sense of we'll go quarterback, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, offensive line, just to make things a little bit easier because we only met with 2 quarterbacks. Holton Ahlers is probably going to be an undrafted free agent quarterback, while you look at Aiden O'Connell out of Purdue. He's a day 3 guy, 5th round pick, 6th round pick, 7th round pick, one of those kinds of guys. I don't expect the Jets to really use a pick on a quarterback. I think they're looking more at Aiden O'Connell as maybe he slips into undrafted free agency. And there's some interest in a guy like Aiden O'Connell, has the potential to be a long-term backup in this league. If we look at his 2021 tape, he was pretty interesting as a passer and kind of fell off last year. But at 25 years old, the expectation of him to become anything more than what he is right now is, I think, a bit optimistic. And so I would not expect the Jets to use a pick on a quarterback in this draft, and they shouldn't. Moving on to the running back position, the New York Jets have met with 4 running backs, and I have been saying this for a while. The New York Jets will be using a draft pick on a running back. We've met with Dwayne McBride, who can go as early as day 3. We've met with, Owen Wright, Zach Evans, and Keaton Mitchell, guys that are probably going to be going in day 3, late round picks. But again, the idea here is that we're meeting with a ton of running backs, we don't necessarily care about the fact that we have Michael Carter and that we have Breece Hall and that we have, Ty Johnson. If you can make the room better, you make the room better. And I think the biggest picture here is that we're still probably taking a running back in day 3. The Dwayne McBride and Keaton Mitchell meetings and private workouts paint a picture to me that if they're there in the 4th round, that's where we're going to take them, because these guys probably should be 3rd round picks, but this is a really deep running back. Teams might look at delaying that pick. And then we have backup options in Owen Wright, who's probably going to be an undrafted free agent running back, and then Zach Evans, who's probably going to be a day 3 running back. We are going to walk away from this draft with a running back. That's what these meetings told me. I think that that's going to happen. It just makes too much sense for the New York Jets to take a running back. I don't want to rush Breece Hall back, and we know that our running back room has some injury concerns because we've dealt with injuries there before, but also running back in our scheme is really, really, it's not that complicated, and you can find guys in later parts of the draft that can come in and contribute at a high level. Moving on to wide receiver, I was honestly surprised with the wide receiver meetings because Trey Palmer is a guy that I'm really, really high up on and is probably going to shoot up boards. But all of the wide receivers that we've met with are late round guys, and it makes a ton of sense. Andre Ayoshivas is a guy that I locked in on really, really early, and he's getting a meeting because he's at Princeton. He's coming to the local day that they're hosting in New York. Trey Palmer, like I said, they had a top 30 private workout visit with him. Another very, very interesting guy. A lot of the really, really cool tools that you want at wide receiver. Elijah Harper kind of ends up, or probably ends up being, an undrafted free agent kind of a guy. In my opinion. And that's just it. But Bryce Ford Wheaton, Trey Palmer, Andre Ayoshivas are all guys that are going to get drafted. They're all going to get taken probably day 2, day 3, probably day 3 if we're being honest. And they all kind of fit a very similar mold. They're all over 6 foot. They're all, big-bodied receivers, and they all kind of are the opposite of what we have in the New York Jets right now. Like if you count Denzel Mims and stuff like that, but these guys all kind of paint a picture of what Alan Lazard is. I think that these are all guys that can be really good contributors in the run game and their blocking schemes because they're carrying a ton of weight. They're tall guys. They're strong guys. They also can be a contested catch guy. And it makes a ton of sense when you look at Aaron Rodgers and the receivers that he's had most success with in his career. And so always going and developing guys is what you want to do. Now, this meeting really stuck out to me. Now, I think this might have been just one of those, hey, you know what? We're here. We might as well meet with the guy in Luke Schoonmaker, the tight end out of Michigan, because they met him at his pro day. That being said, I wouldn't hate if we were to draft a tight end in this draft. I love me some, Kenny Aboa and Nick Bawden. But again, it's all about making your rooms better, period. No position should be safe. No player's job should be secure. Every position should be up for grabs. And having a meeting with a guy like Luke Schoonmaker, 1, is just good business. Have the meeting. You're there. Why not? But 2, is one of those things of competition is good, especially in the NFL. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about the offensive line, not named center. Or did we talk center? We'll talk center again just in case. We only talked, I think John Michael Schmitz is the only player that we've met multiple times, the only center prospect that we've met with as of right now, which surprises me. But when we look at the offensive tackle and the offensive guard rooms, we've really cast a really wide net of guys that we met. Guys that can be taken in the 1st round, like Broderick Jones. Guys that can be taken as high as the 2nd round in Blake Freeland, probably really a day 3 pick. A round 3 pick. But then a ton of guys that can be, a day 3 picks that have really high upside. Brandon Kipper, Braden Daniels, McClendon Curtis, Joey Fisher, Trevor Reed are all guys that are probably going to be available 3rd round and lower. And this is a big talking point that the New York Jets not the New York Jets, but like a lot of people in New York Jets media have been saying, is that yes, the New York Jets should prioritize the offensive line. And I would not be surprised if we walked away with 3 offensive linemen in this year's draft. That being said, we don't necessarily have to go offensive line in the first round. We've only met with 1 first-round offensive lineman, which I think makes a ton of sense. Broderick Jones, if he's there at 13, I don't think the New York Jets trade out. He's really the player. Remember last year when Connor Rogers was talking about, oh, if Ike Ekwonu is there at 4, I don't see how the New York Jets pass up on him. I never believed that, but this is the guy that I actually think is going to turn Joe Douglas's head. If Broderick Jones is there at 13, I don't know if he's going to be able to pass them up, especially because we're having him in a top 30 visit, and he's following up our top 30 visit by going where? To the New England Patriots, who are picking at 14, and they're going to have a top 30 visit with him. I think that's his floor is 13, and his ceiling can be as high as, like 7, like he can be a top 10 pick, but I think his floor is pick 14. Broderick Jones, I think, has that upside, but you don't have to go there. Blake Freeland is the guy that has a ton of ability too. McClendon Curtis, Joey Fisher, and Trevor Reed are all guys that have some upside. Not Joey Fisher. McClendon Curtis, Trevor Reed, and I think it's Braden Daniels are all guys that have some upside. They play tackle at the college level. They probably bring you some positional versatility, play tackle and guard. They've also, and I couldn't confirm this before the video, they've also met with the Old Dominion tackle, Nick Saldivieri, but the source for that isn't super trustworthy. That's why he's not on this list. But again, taking a tackle in the first round doesn't need to be a priority. We should be getting the best players at that pick. Now, I think if Broderick Jones is there at 13, he is the best player on the board probably, and you got to take him. But if it's Kalijah Cansey, if it's, Brian Branch, if it's we haven't met with a ton of first round picks, and that's, I think, another very telling thing. A lot of the guys that we've met with are 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks. That's who we're using our top 30 visits on. So I don't know if the Jets are really super interested in picking in the top 15 or anything like that, which is another telling thing, possibly trading out of 13. But again, a lot of really interesting guys. So ultimately, when we're talking about draft strategy, what are the New York Jets probably looking at doing? The first and second round are going to probably be about recouping assets. If we look at the meetings that we've had, there are a couple of players that stand out. Your John Michael Schmitz, your Deion Henleys, your Tuli Tuipulotus, Mozzie Smiths, Jamie Robinson, Brian Branch, Broderick Jones. But when we look at the majority of the players that we're meeting with, what does it tell me? We want to recoup as many late round picks as possible. Expect a trade out of 13, expect a trade out of 42, and expect us to walk away with a ton of these late round picks that are going to come in and I think contribute at a high level, especially with this team. I think what's happening is Joe Douglas is making his list of can't pass guys. Your Broderick Joneses, your Deion Henleys, your John Michael Schmitz, your Tuli Tuipulotus, those kinds of guys that might be available at pick 13, that might be available at pick 42. And if those guys are gone, then you try to find a trade partner. You try to find someone willing to come up to try to get in front of whoever it is to go make their move. Because if Broderick Jones is out, while I love me some Anton Harrison or Darnell Wright or DeJuan Jones or anything like that, I feel just as confident in those guys. Well, maybe not Anton Harrison, because Anton Harrison is a dog, but I feel just as confident trading out and saying, hey, do you want to come up in front of the New England Patriots to take a tackle? Cool. And to stop us from taking a tackle? Cool. Here's what it's going to cost. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think of these meetings? Who are players that you want the Jets to meet with? Let me know in the comment section. And last but not least, go Jets.